Polls are always an interesting thing, especially when you consider how the voters of said polls oftentimes use different lines of criteria to create their rankings. And of course, the polls not just limited to the top 25, but that's what we see, or at least what the media draws attention to. Iowa coming in inside the top 25 in the preseason coaches poll, but I'll tell you why I think they're underranked regardless of how you look at it in just a second. Before we get to that information, I want to thank our two sponsors, Under the Kitchen. Randy Engel down in Mitchellville. Support him by coming out to Fry Fest and purchasing an authentic Hawkeye artwork, a piece of Hawkeye artwork, a genuine signed print, courtesy of a great artist in Randy Engel down at Under the Kitchen. Also, Iowa floor covering. Check it out. Go to IFC down in Bondurant. You can visit them online, iowafloorcovering.com, or call them to see how they can help you with your next big flooring project. Visit iowafloorcovering.com or call 515-379-7000. That's IFC down in Bondurant. So the Iowa Hawkeyes coming in at number 25 in the preseason coaches poll. Now, I've talked about polls in the past. I don't think preseason polls should be released. I see no purpose other than creating conversation. And the problem with these preseason polls is they do influence polls in weeks 1, 2, 3, and go down the gamut. Unfortunately, they have an influence on what happens at the end of the season. How so? Well, you have these voters, whether they be coaches or media members in the AP voting group, that basically are projecting what they think will happen, whether they're looking at criteria based upon projected schedule, projected record, projected recruiting rankings, projected team strength, all of that. And they're not really basing it on anything because nothing has happened yet, right? So I believe polls should be based upon body of work, what we see throughout the season. And so to sum all this up, there shouldn't be polls until after week 1, until we've actually seen football that counts. We should not be ranking teams, because here's what's going to happen, folks. Ohio State plays Akron week 1. If somehow Akron shocks the world, Ohio State's ranked number 2 in this preseason coaches poll. If Akron shocks the world, Ohio State will still be ranked in the week 1 poll. All right. The poll following week 1, Ohio State will still be ranked. That's stupid. All right. Because their body of work says they lost at home to a MAC team in Akron. There's no way on earth that there are not at least 25 better bodies of work, so to speak, in college football nation. But that's my soapbox. You can disagree with it if you want. I know this is a talking point. Hey, I'm publishing a video about where Iowa's at, so I guess I shouldn't complain. Let's look at the preseason top 25 coaches poll, and I'll tell you why I think Iowa's underranked. The Hawkeyes coming in at number 25, and if you take a look at this, as I mentioned, Ohio State, the top-ranked Big Ten team at number 2. No real surprise above them, Georgia. Oregon, another Big Ten newcomer, ranked at number 3. And then you've got Michigan in the top 10, Penn State in the top 10. Who on earth voted Michigan number 1? I wonder if that came from the maize and blue. Penn State, as I mentioned. And then you've got a couple of Big Ten teams rounding out that top 25 in USC and Iowa. And how about Washington coming in at number 26 and the others receiving votes? Yes, the poll does not stop at 25, just what we perceive to be the poll. Washington coming off that national championship appearance, but they lost a lot. I think they're overranked, and I talked about some preseason bias that I kind of anticipated. We saw some media members from the Cleveland.com Big Ten preseason poll, along with USA Today Big Ten voters, that all had Washington, I think, a little higher than they should have been. You see some other teams from the Big Ten that did receive votes, one being Wisconsin received 17 votes. Nebraska received a couple of votes. So what do we make of this? Well, first of all, I just think Iowa is going to be better than number 25 in the country. You look at their body of work. We're going to continue to preview the offense, the defense, the special teams units as we count down the days to kickoff. But with all they bring back on defense, and then some of the more important pieces that they've brought in on offense, specifically returning Cade McNamara, bringing in Brendan Sullivan out of the transfer portal, and I think what you're going to get with Jacob Gill and the return of Luke Lachey is a passing game that's at least average. And if you're at least average with that defense and what I think to be a really strong special teams unit, again, albeit without Torrey Taylor, I just think this team will be better than number 25 in the country. And even if you're looking at Iowa from a perspective of where will they finish at the end of the regular season, a lot of people, pundits, are predicting that Iowa ends up at 10-2. I have not made my official prediction yet, but 10-2 would likely put them well above number 25. And if you want to know what I mean by that, take a look at the post 12 game rankings in 2023. Take a look at the AP poll from 2023. Iowa finished 10-2 last year, and in the AP poll, they were ranked number 18. Even after they lost 2 more games at the end of the season, they were still ranked number 24 at 10-4. You look at the coaches poll after those 12 games, Iowa ranked number 17. And then at the end of the bowl game, they were 10-4. They were still ranked number 22 in the country. Maybe voters, these coaches, I think a lot of them are probably not really taking a whole lot of time to submit their vote and actually look with a fine comb at all the teams in the 130 FBS teams that they have responsibility to vote for. And I think the other thing to keep in mind is perhaps some of these coaches who are part of this coaches poll are being influenced by the Vegas win-loss totals. That's an easy fallback if you don't want to have to look at every team and look at what they bring back and look at what they brought in through the transfer portal and recruiting rankings and all that. You can look at, hey, Vegas has Iowa at 7.5. I think that's really low. I've talked about that, but maybe that's the influence as to why Iowa's almost not even in the top 25. But the bottom line is they're very close in the rankings to USC, which those two teams flip-flopped in the preseason Big Ten polls. So not a big surprise there. And rankings really don't matter. In fact, you'd almost rather Iowa not be ranked. But they're going to be ranked early regardless because of the way these polls work. As long as Iowa doesn't lose to Illinois State, they're going to go up, even though I could argue a win against Illinois State, there's probably at least 25 better wins. You see my point? There are probably going to be at least 25 better wins in the FBS after week 1. So I probably wouldn't have Iowa ranked after week 1, but you can't say that definitively. I just don't like the fact that the rest of the week's rankings are based upon the preseason polls, which are based upon speculation. That's all it's based upon. Nothing as it relates to body of work. And I think some influence from the 2023 season. I think that's why you got Washington at 26. But those are the rankings, the coaches' rankings, official AFCA coaches' rankings. We'll continue to provide preseason coverage right here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. And as we count down the days to Iowa Media Day, be sure you're locked in. Subscribe, hit that like button on this video. More to come as we approach Media Day and the open scrimmage at Kids Day this Saturday in Kinnick. We'll talk to you soon.